Let's go ahead and kick it off. So welcome everybody to the Security in 45 show. Today is September 17th, 2024, Tuesday. Nice rainy day here in North Carolina. We got the storm right off the coast. Jake is joining us from Charleston. Jake is an outstanding colleague that Andres and I get to work with regularly for a lot of different security technologies. And he's going to be helping us out today as a follow-up to yesterday's Cisco XDR discussion. Andres, you want to go ahead and talk a little bit about the show today?
Yeah. So today it's gonna be an overview, a really nice overview about XDR. We have Jake here to help us with that, and basically we're gonna go through some of the features, things that we can do, incidents. How does it look? How does it feel for anybody that, it's already using it or it's looking into getting XDR? And without further ado, Jake, I'll let you introduce yourself, and if you want to jump right into it, feel free.
Awesome. Yeah. Thanks, guys. Like I said, my name's Jake, one of the security sales engineers here at Cisco. I've been here at Cisco 7 years at this point. Then my most recent stint was on a incubation team that we stood up kind of pre-GA for XDR, and then as we went through the initial year of GA. So I've been head down on it for a couple years at this point. So happy to jump on, talk through it, do some demos.
Yeah, well, we're so happy to have you here because, like I said, you've helped out with a lot of the background technology behind the scenes stuff of XDR. We see the nice dashboard, but behind the scenes, we talk about like Stealthwatch Cloud and all that, and it's so you've got that familiarity with that, and this will be. I'm really excited.
Yeah, it's all been merged together. We'll see aspects of all those different products that came together to form what is now XDR. I want to spend most of the time here in actual demos and in dashboards, and then incidents. Right, slides are fine, screenshots are fine, but hands-on time is certainly going to be more interesting. So we'll do this one and only slide. This is more of a refresher or reminder if any folks missed the show yesterday. What even is XDR? What are we talking about? XDR, extended detection and response. What are the main concepts of that? Really comes down to these three. This first piece, the collection of telemetry from multiple security tools. What do we mean by this? We just mean we want to be able to consume those events, those alerts, those alarms, those detections that all our different security platforms have. Right? Our firewall events, our endpoint events, our DNS events, our email security events, whatever it may be. That is the telemetry that we're targeting, those detections and individual alerts that we get from all these different point products. What do we do with it? The second bullet, very marketing sounding. We'll talk through it. Application of analytics to the collected and homogenized data to arrive at a detection of maliciousness. All this means is we're going to take all that telemetry, all those different events from all those disparate platforms that are all doing their own thing. They all have their kind of narrow view on the environment, and we're going to correlate those events together. And I can end up saying, hey, this firewall event, this firewall event happened because you have this endpoint event, right? This process ran on this endpoint. It caused the endpoint to make a connection out to a public resource. My firewall has a log of that connection happening. That's all we mean by this homogenized and analytics piece, is taking all those disparate events from all those different tools and making sense of them for us, right? Presenting us a single incident, a single investigation that I can work through to see my endpoint events, my email events, my firewall events. The list goes on and on. Final piece, probably one of the most important pieces here, is the R component of XDR, response and remediation of that maliciousness. It's great that I can pull in all this telemetry. It's great that I can correlate it and it cleans it up and it trims out the noise for me, but I need to be able to do something with it, right? I need to be able to take some type of action. I need to respond to these incidents and these detections as these alerts come in. That is a mandatory part of any XDR platform. We'll talk about and look at how it's been implemented here, different ways that automation can be brought into play, different ways that you can start to build your own custom workflows. It's all going to exist inside this one platform, this one premise of extended detection and response. With that, let's jump into it. All right, we're going to go through a couple different labs that we maintain internally here at Cisco. I will preface that the things we do in these labs and the things that happen to these endpoints are horrific, and what we're going to see is a extreme example of incidents, right? We're going to see endpoints that have been completely compromised and destroyed. This is not what we expect to see in a typical environment, right? But these labs we run are essentially run in the worst practice configuration that you can ever think of, which is fine because now I get all sorts of cool data and incidents and alerts that I get to dig through and demo. We're going to focus mainly on the dashboard component of XDR and then the actual incidents. We'll touch on the other kind of modules that are inside of here. This is where we're going to spend most of our time. Dashboards, I don't think it's possible for any product to come out and not have some type of dashboard, right? We need dashboards, we need reporting. That is the dashboards. That's what we call the control center inside of the XDR platform. This is high-level information to give me a glimpse of all that telemetry, all those security events that I have coming in. What are they? Where do they map inside of MITRE? You can see we've got the different tactics laid out. We are taking those source security events from whatever product is providing it, whether that be a Cisco security tool or a non-Cisco security tool. It does not matter. At this point, pretty much every vendor is now including the MITRE tactics and techniques that relate to their individual alerts and incidents. This is now just a visual representation of that. I can see I've got a whole ton of credentials access that's happening inside of that credential access. I can see the different techniques that are being used. I can see the count of each one of those events, each one of those incidents. I see a list of currently unassigned incidents that are sitting in the console. So we're doing pretty good. We've only got these 3 unassigned incidents that are in here today. We'll talk about this more in the incidents piece, but there's full case management, kind of ticket management, service management that is built into these incidents, right? We can assign them out. We can work on them together as a team. We can add notes. We can add a report at the end of it. Full case management has been built into these incidents as we see them in XDR. Final piece, our metrics in this particular lab are absolutely terrible. We've got our mean time summary. So mean time to engage, mean time to resolution, how many incidents are engaged, how many have been resolved. Again, this is a lab. We run it terribly. We let these things sit and just fester and continue to get bad. So yes, our mean time metrics are absolutely terrible. In a legitimate production environment, these can be a good metric to see. Hey, I've got this one platform I'm looking at. I have all this data coming in. How long is it taking me and the team, whoever that team may be, to actually look into these incidents once they arrive? And once we've looked into them, how long is that investigation all the way to resolution and case closure actually taking to happen?
Jake, I used to just kind of glance right over the team mean to time summary, but yeah, that's actually turned into be one of my favorite things, is it's keeping track of like how good of a job is the tool doing, how well am I interacting with it, and are there maybe if it is getting high, are there areas that I can turn on some automation to get it closer to 0?
Yep, yeah, it's a good metric to see. Nothing you need to like configure or turn on to get these metrics. We just need to natively interact with the incidents. That's it. It's now going to start to calculate these and give us some reporting when the questions inevitably come from higher up the chain.
Yeah.
Hey, what's this tool even doing for us? Is it even that useful? Well, yes, I can see a downward trend in time to engage, time to resolve, whatever it may be. Those are all built in for us. We don't need to do anything to enable or tune those metrics. Cool. We'll leave it there on dashboards. You see across the top, I'll click through a couple. You can build your own custom dashboards that display different security telemetry from different security tools, right? This one, SNA, that's Secure Network Analytics, aka StealthWatch, another one of the security products we have. All these different tools also have their own version of, say, security dashboard that has their own widgets and metrics. That's fine. I can pull those little widgets into these XDR dashboards as well. I've got my SNA dashboard. I can have a firewall dashboard. I can have a secure endpoint dashboard, whatever dashboards I want. We can pull all these in, just get a nice visual representation, right? It looks nice. Throw it up on a big screen. It looks real great. The color planning they did looks pretty nice. Very much a visual component of this.
If you had someone that was like, I want to see a portion of this, like you said, you just made me think of, I'm in a conference room showing statistics. Can you do this over time? Like if you had to make a presentation over the past 30 days versus just past week, can we filter this based on time at all, or?
You can. It's just going to display like the current box, so we can't get like any sort of trend or line graph. But yeah, like they all default to last 30 days.
Oh, that's good.
Trim it and say, all right, just show me last week, last 24 hours. Same for the metrics, right? I can say, all right, well, on average for the last 30 days, we've done terrible. Let's see what the last 7 days have looked like. We haven't even worked on anything in the last 7 days,
Yeah.
so this metric's not
No,
great.
I like that though, because like you said, that's a good way to see improvement over time. And
Yeah.
during 30 days to 7, for example.
Yep, and it's very small. Let's see if I can zoom in. You can see the trends it does give you at the bottom. So we can see, hey, the mean time to engage has increased by 2 weeks from the last time or the last 30 days that these metrics were pulled. So it does give you some indications of trends over time.
Very nice.
Final dashboard I'll touch on, and I want to touch on it because this is fairly net new to the product and a whole ton of work went into this. If I can get my not my toolbar to pop out, is this MITRE coverage map. Again, as we go through the incidents, we're also going to see this MITRE concept play very heavily into how these incidents occur and how they're scored. We also have this MITRE matrix, this MITRE attack coverage map. I'll preface it with, currently this only uses the Cisco security products. We can see the ones listed across the top, email threat defense, secure endpoint, malware analytics, secure network analytics. But what this does is says, hey, we know the capabilities of those different tools. We know what those different security products can do. We know for what tactics and techniques that they can provide coverage in some way or another. XDR also knows what has been integrated to it, right? I know secure network analytics, all 4 of these have been integrated along with just XDR native detections. It takes that and then overlays it to this matrix to show you here's exactly where I have coverage, right? Here are each of the tactics. So like priv escalation, I'm covered on all 14 of those techniques that fall inside of privilege escalation. If I want to see how I'm covered, nice and easy, click on whatever cell you want to look, and I can see, well, natively with XDR ingest, I'm covered, and secure endpoint, and malware analytics, and secure network analytics. Contrast that to lateral tool transfer. Well, I know if as long as I've got secure endpoint out there, I have coverage for that particular technique inside of that particular tactic. And where I don't have coverage, right? Equally as important to where I have coverage is where I do not have coverage. I see that listed in here as well. Again, we've got pretty much everything integrated here, so our coverage is pretty good. But I can see, hey, here are the different components. Here are the different places where I don't have coverage for that tactic or technique at the moment. On the roadmap, not here today, is suggestions of what types of products you could use to get coverage. Right now, it's just, do you have it? Do you not? If you do, you're covered. Here's where you're covered. Further down the roadmap, we'd want to put a fair amount of time into this coverage map of helping you out to see, hey, I am curious about defense evasion and specifically container deployment. I see I don't have coverage. How could I get some sort of coverage or protection for that technique? At some point, that'll start to show up in the little drawer pop-outs for each of these of, hey, here's, you know, a handful of different Cisco products that you could look at to cover that particular technique.
So I guess, Jake, using something like this, if I had an objective, I'm the one in charge of all this, the blocking phishing for my company. Is this? It seems like this would be a good place to come in and just kind of, based on the MITRE frameworks, be like, I can see how my organization is doing when it comes to phishing, just as an example, but a focus, objective there.
Yep, exactly. Yep. So like we know recon, we have very poor coverage in recon for this particular environment, but persistence, priv escalation, I'm good. 20 for 20, 14 for 14. Yep. Use this to start to build out that layered approach to security. See what layers do I have gaps in? What layers am I doing well in, but where can I improve? Good stuff. We'll end it there with dashboards. Let's get into the exciting stuff, the incidents. We're going to look at a whole ton of different incidents inside this lab today. Each one of these incidents, it exists as a single incident inside of XDR. Right? That's what this table is showing me. We have, in this case, 95 different unique incidents that have shown up inside the platform. We'll pick a couple to investigate, and as we drill down through them, we'll see this. But each one of these incidents, in reality, is the result of that correlation that we're doing on those individual detections, alerts, incidents, alarms that we can get from all the individual security platforms. So as we crack these open, we'll start to see, I only have one incident to investigate, and that's fine. And inside of that incident, I can see the 30 different individual events that came from across my security portfolio I don't need to try to hunt those down one by one in 6, 7, 8 different product dashboards. I just stream all my telemetry to XDR. It's correlating that data for me. The name of these stands out fairly brightly in this list. We've got multi-device credential dump tool and malicious module deployment, credential theft and evasion tactics, all sorts of kind of unique, interesting names. AI is constantly a buzz in the industry and will continue to be a buzz in the industry. We'll talk about air quotes AI. In our case, it's very much on the large language model side of the house, where that's being brought into XDR and where it's being used. The title, the name of the incidents is the first place. All right, so we'll just pick one of these to open up to kind of example. There's our AI assistant popping up. We'll come back to that guy. Disappear for now. If I look at this particular incident, so indicators, if we look at indicators, those are nothing more than the source events, the source detections that came from some type of security single point product. In this case, these are CrowdStrike events. Right? These do not need to be Cisco security products that we're consuming telemetry on. This happened to be a list of a whole ton of different CrowdStrike detections that we had. Each one of these events, each one of these detections, regardless of the platform or the product it's from, is going to have its own name. It's going to have its own description. It's going to have its own title of here's what this individual incident is. And I can end up with 10, 20, 30, 40. We got 29 different types of incidents or alerts inside of this one incident. We take those incident names, the descriptions, the titles that we've collected and correlated, and then do our best to say, hey, give me a one-sentence title of if I had to summarize all of this data. Well, in this case, we ended up with, we've got a whole sorts of credential dumping happening, and we've got some malicious modules deployed. So first place we see AI language models start to have an impact on how we consume and see this data. Next two places are going to be the description. So I get a nice short description of, hey, here's when it started. Here's the last time we saw activity on it. We've got multiple devices that were used. We've got a cred dump tool, malicious module. We've got sensor-based detections. All of these, again, pulled from those actual source events, products from the different security tools. I want to go extreme. I can pop it out to the full detailed description. Now I get much more kind of step-by-step, right? Here's where it started, 2 devices. Here's what we saw shortly thereafter. 3 more findings emerged with another 2. Last activity was XYZ date and time.
Pretty cool that it tells you a whole story about, what's going on and what happened. And just, time by time.
Yeah.
And I like that it says AI generated, so, we don't think that,
yes.
Somebody
we are, yes, we are making sure it is, we do grade out a little bit, but as obvious we can make it as, hey, this came from some type of AI. It is being explicitly labeled anywhere we see that in the UI.
And yeah, that really is incredible. I'll be honest, I've wondered how it named everything so well with the name of the incidents. Like, if you think about we were talking about this yesterday, Jake, like trying to do this process manually, like noticing a suspicious anything, figuring out what it is. This thing's giving us what it is in the title and the description.
Yep.
Amazing.
Yeah. Nice little breakdown. Because the other option would be, if we go to the detection tab, we're jumping around a bit, but these are all those individual events that were correlated to this incident. Again, each one of these has a name. We display that as an indicator. And then inside of that, it's got a summary and a description. I could read all 29 of these, sure, and then do my best to try to make sense or write my own version of, here's a short description of what happened. I don't need to, right? This correlation has already been done. That data, that text has already been scraped. It's already been dumped into both that short and long description version.
So these 29, I guess, like alerts, just so I'm clear, these could potentially be coming from a whole bunch of different products, but this system, XDR, knows they're all related. So we might have stuff coming from, the endpoint, the network, email, but we're all saying that is related, and therefore I'm just going to present it as one incident that we can work with.
Exactly. Yep. Yeah. That one example, we were testing out the CrowdStrike agent on a particular endpoint. So we just blasted that one, and as expected, got a whole ton of endpoint CrowdStrike detections. A more broad reacher one would be this attack chain that we use. I'm going to go to detection again, right? We've got all these tabs across the top. Detection is just where I go to see a more traditional table view of all the different events that came from all the different platforms. Source will tell us exactly what that platform was, exactly what that tool was. So if I drop down the source column, I can filter. If I want to filter it down to only certain things, I can see I've got secure endpoint detections. I've got native XDR network and endpoint detections. I've got analytics detections. I've got more secure endpoint detections. I've even got telemetry from third-party threat feeds or sources that we can integrate with. Right? Alien Vault Open Threat Exchange is in here. Abuse IPDB is providing some amount of data. So I've got, what, 3, 4, 5 different platforms, all with their own important piece of information, their own intelligence, their own alert, their own detection. It's now all being correlated for me into one single incident that I'm now free to manipulate and work through. If I want to do some filters, sort by time, sort by observables, the assets, however I want to work with this table, we're free to work with it. Let's jump back to overview quick, because we kind of sped through that. Overview. This is, as it's titled, a broad overview of the overall incident and all the different observables that were a part of it. So observables, these can be anything from IP address to file hash to file name to email attachment to domain to URL. All an observable is they're scraped from those source indicators. Those source indicators are the source security events, the source security detections from the different tools. So if I look at a NetFlow tool, right, we've got secure network analytics. It consumes network telemetry. It's layer 3 network telemetry. If I look at an event from something like that, I'm certainly going to expect to see IP address as part of that. It's layer 3 data. IP address is one of the observables that will be part of that event that it may fire. But I'm probably not going to see file hash. Right? File hash, the network layer 3 data has no concept of files or file hashes. I'm not going to see that there. But for my endpoint products, I would certainly expect to see things like process name and user and file hash. Those are also observable. So any of those key data points, those unique kind of metadata points of those source events, those detections, that's what we interpret as observables. Assets is the easy one. Those are the assets, the endpoints, the devices that were part of the overall incident. The graph now shows us how do all these observables relate to each other, right? What does this XDRI.local have anything to do with a handful of IP addresses? What do those IPs have anything to do with a whole ton of different processes? We've got more endpoints, we've got more users. This is a summarized view of, hey, those 57 different observables, those 22 different indicators. Here's how they related, right? I can span out each one of these groups. I can manipulate this graph. I can drag things around. I've got 2 IPs in here. I've got this Victor plus XCRI local. So I can see, I know that this particular device, both connected to and communicated with, I've got 2 different IPs, this 198.18 and then this 185.199. I've got a handful of processes that were also involved. And I know when those processes were executed, they caused connections to those same public IP addresses that I've already seen. We see color coding in here, right? I've got nice blue, sparkly clean. I've got red with a little skull, and then I have this orange with a little eyeball, and then gray. That is the disposition or the verdict that we have for these different observables. So if we look at these 2 IPs, I've got this 198.18. I can hit my context menu. I have this context menu for any of the observables that I might see, and I can see that umbrella happens to have that particular IP as suspicious. Orange is what we use for suspicious. Whereas I've got these file hashes, which shows good with the colors and the indicators. It's red. It's even got a little skull up in the top right corner. This particular file hash happens to be known as malicious. Where is it from, malicious? Well, in this case, I've added my own private judgment, right? My own private intelligence feed to say, hey, even though VirusTotal and Cisco and all the other big threat intel, they don't either know anything about this hash or they say it's fine. To me, in my investigation, in the activity I'm seeing, I'm going to consider this particular hash as malicious. That custom rule, that custom private intelligence will be honored. It's now going to be displayed as malicious anywhere I see it in the UI, whether that's in the graphs or the table. Same goes for clean. It's also good to know that GitHub.com probably going to be known as clean. That's fine. But I can also see, well, who's got it as clean. We can jump to there.
I like that we go with the red skull. Like there's no, there's no getting around that. That one is definitely malicious.
No, yes, that one stands out pretty explicitly. Yeah. Cool. All right, so we'll jump back to detection quick, but This is now just essentially a table view of what we just saw on the overview page, right? If you're more of a logical visual learner, right? You like things in a table view. That's how I like them. This is the page I use more often. If you're more on the visual side, you like the graphs, you like all the connections, use that overview page. That's absolutely fine. Same data is shown on each page, is just shown in different ways. You see the observables that were scraped from there. I see the actual indicator. So here's some behavioral protection events from secure endpoint. I know that this particular endpoint, this asset was involved. We pull host name, right? But we pull all sorts of different attributes about those endpoints. I can see it's GUID for secure endpoint. It also has Defender on it. Probably don't run both, but we run both on this one. So I can see its unique machine identifier. I can see any IP addresses that have been observed on it. I can see the host name. I can see other alternate host names that it's been known by. Any other additional attributes we have on those assets, on those endpoints, that's all going to be stitched into this context menu. We see, again, this context menu shows up. Anywhere we have an observable or an asset, we can hit that drop-down context menu. Cool. Let's jump to response. So I got a fairly decent incident, right? I've got all sorts of high and critical severities. Our own rating of this, we put it at a 900. Let's talk about that quick, or I'm going to miss that topic. We're fairly used to the traditional low, medium, high, critical, right? Those are the different types of scoring or the different types of severity that I can have for different incidents that I see in the different point products. We still honor that scoring, right? If we go back to that detection tab, I still see, hey, this was a high, here was a critical. I don't know if I have any, I've got some just informational ones, I've got some low. So we still honor that, but we use this concept of this threat score, this priority score for each one of the incidents. That priority score is made up of two different values. So we see we're at a 900 for this. The two values that I use to get that are the detection risk. Detection is a 1 to 100 value that's going to be automatically calculated. And now I have my asset value. Asset value can be manually set, or you can write some rules and automations to change the value that you have on that asset from 1 to 10. Detection risk, the biggest piece that plays into that, again, back to MITRE, we track and map all those different tactics and techniques that were used in the entirety of the incident. Right? I'm not just looking at, hey, what tactic does suspicious endpoint activity map to? I'm looking at, for all 49 of these different events, regardless of where they came from, Cisco or not, what are the multiple stages? How did we see this progress through the different tactics and techniques? So we've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 different type of tactics that were used in this overall incident. And then I can even see the techniques within each that were used. That concept, paired with just how many of those events do we have, paired with what is the source rating of that individual incident, right? We don't use that rating, but we still honor that rating. If the firewall says it's a critical, all right, we're going to give that some weight. It says it's a critical. All that comes together to automatically create this detection risk number, right? That's 1 to 100 number of what is the risk of incidents like this, of situations like this, where we see these exploits used, where we see these behaviors present, where we see these tactics and techniques exploited. How risky is that? How damaging could that be to your organization as a whole if this continues, if we don't switch gears into response mode? Multiply that risk by asset value. Asset value, fairly easy one. We've got all different types of devices, workstation endpoints that are out there. Some of them are just going to inherently have more value to me than others. If I look at my domain controller and contrast that to an iPod that's on a fully segmented guest network, one of those is going to have more value, right? They're both important. I want to monitor both, but inherently one of those is going to have more value. That's where this asset value number is intended to be used, right? It plays into the overall priority of those different incidents. So we know this one is all the way up at 900. We've got all sorts of tactics involved. We've got suspicious IPs. We've got malicious hashes. We've got domains. We've got URLs. My domain controller's in here. I've got an individual endpoint that's in here. Let's kick it over to response. Staying still inside the incident, I'm just going to jump to response mode. This is the Cisco provided playbook. So this is out of the box. These different steps, these different phases, these come out of the box. This is one we provide as an example. If it's the one you want to use, you can use it. This is meant to be, as much as possible, a step-by-step, how do I run incident response, right? Where do I start? What do I look at first? Where does my focus need to be? What is the order of operations? that I run standard incident response operations. It starts with identification. We give you nice little notes of, hey, you should review the incident. What does that mean? Well, look at the assets involved, the observables, the indicators, see if there's any false positives in there, remove any confirmation bias, validate the detection is true positive, etc. This is where the case management piece comes in. So we can see this particular incident is assigned to one of our colleagues, Mike Simone. You can have multiple folks assigned to an incident as multiple people are working through the incident. And as they're working through these steps, they can add different notes to the different steps. So I review the incident and I say, hey, it looks like these IPs are actually fine. We have them tagged as suspicious. Maybe we should change that. I can add my note to the incident. It's all going to show up in a historical work log that I can go review at the end of the day once we've reached resolution to see who exactly did what, who worked on what steps, what commentary did they have. Important pieces, but fairly boring, right? It's note taking. It's important, but it's not the most exciting. Containment is now where we get to the full automation, the full response component. Again, this is the Cisco provided one. So out of the box, we kind of give you a choose your own adventure. You've got all sorts of different ways you could do response. Right? I could reach containment at the asset layer. I could do it by the user account. I could do it using domains, URLs, file hashes, whatever it may be. I choose, right? Maybe I've done my investigation and I say, yep, I need to isolate that particular endpoint. That would be the device workflow. And it'll tell you if you expand it, this is going to quarantine all selected assets using your integrated endpoint detection and response solution. That does not say Cisco secure endpoint, right? This works perfectly fine with third-party EDRs as well. I don't even need to tell it when I run it. You know, we saw that one device had both Defender and secure endpoint on it. Maybe I've got a bit of both out there. I don't need to tell it, hey, this one has CrowdStrike, this one has Defender, this one has SentinelOne. No, all that's built into the workflows that are going to execute when I hit the execute button. So I said, yep, let's do it by devices. It says, cool, here's all the different endpoints that were part of this. Here's the number of events that we saw for each one of those endpoints. I know this Remy guy had all sorts of suspicious and malicious behavior associated with it. I check the box. I'm not going to click execute. This is a live lab we use all the time, so it will run. I hit execute the workflow once, right? There is now all the API calls that need to happen. Any integration we see, any of these automations that we see are all done 100% via API, whether that's our own Cisco security product APIs or the third-party product APIs we have out there. That is how every one of these automations and executions is going to run. You don't need to be intimately familiar with the API structure and formatting of all these different products, Cisco or non-Cisco. We have built those workflows in, right? We'll go take a look at them shortly. But really, when I'm running this and saying, hey, I want you to isolate that particular endpoint, there is a workflow that's already built in out of the box that does all the checks to see, all right, which vendor of endpoint protection is here. Cool, it's secure endpoint. All the API calls I need to make to secure endpoint to do their version of isolation, that's already there. I don't need to build or tweak or mess with any of those workflows. All of that already exists. That concept remains the same for any one of these contained ones, right? Maybe I don't want to actually isolate endpoints. Maybe I want to isolate domains. Well, we only saw one domain here and it was GitHub. I mean, I could block GitHub if I want. Probably going to make a whole lot of people angry, but sure, same concept. I'm now doing enforcement at the domain level. I want to do it by URL. Cool. Here's a couple URLs that we're seeing. I want to do it by file hash. Not a problem. Here's all the hashes that we're seeing. Let's just do the malicious ones. I like to put that hash on some sort of custom detection list.
Jake, we talked about yesterday about that's a good example you brought up about the execute on the endpoint. So we talked about it being, vendor agnostic, and I think that's a really good example of that. Just executing it on the endpoint. We're not worried about what EDR the endpoint's running. And I do like that it certainly does give us the ability to take the action as best we see fit. Like, do I want to isolate off the endpoint, just the domain? Because based on the previous screens you showed, I know what's happening now. I know the assets that are involved, any malicious domains or hashes, and then I can choose how I want to handle that. Yeah, that's cool.
This is new. I think last couple of weeks we added this user containment. Because again, yes, our endpoints get compromised, our endpoints get breached. That's where the vulnerabilities lie. But more often than not, it's the users that are being compromised, right? It's the person, it's the people, it's their account. That's where these compromises are most often occurring. Cool. You know, Vic may have access to all sorts of different endpoints, and I can isolate the one endpoint that we saw some sort of activity from for now. But what's to stop them from using that same compromised credential and now just hopping to a handful of other endpoints? We can isolate all the way up to the user level, right? We're now locking out that entire account. So if we know that account, we know those credentials have been compromised, cool, that's fine. I can now lock them out from here. I don't need to jump into Duo or Active Directory or whatever I've got for identity. Again, all those workflows are already built in. I just need to have the integration done.
That's exactly what I was gonna ask, and you just answered it before I did. And that is, let me ask you, so at the time of the setup, whenever somebody's setting up XDR, they just have to, of course, provide some of those credentials to connect with the domain controllers, things like that, and that's pretty cool.
Yeah, yeah. So
And
any
this is
integration,
new, right?
Yeah, any integration is we use whatever the API is for that product. So the integration really is just exchanging some API keys, some secret keys, and maybe a host URL. And that's it. Everything else, all the API calls and workflows and scripts, everything has been done. We just do that API authentication exchange and say, hey, XDR is allowed to talk to your CrowdStrike API. That's all I need. All the workflows are already there. I can build custom ones, but as much out of the box as we can provide is what we're working to provide.
And to that point, for deployment, if I'm setting this up, this is all SaaS based, right? So there's nothing.
Yeah.
I just get an account and I can start doing this after I integrate my APIs.
100% SaaS. Yep. It's very, very quick on deployment. Yeah. Give us 10, 15 minutes for each third party. Some take a little bit longer than others. But again, we're not deploying VMs. We're not changing configurations. I'm just giving it API access. That's all I need to do. All right. We're close on time. As I work through the incident, right, as I take actions, as I run automations, as I add notes, it's all going to be appended to a historical work log. Good audit trail. I can go back and see, hey, who exactly did what notes did they add, when did this happen? The next place we say AI language models start to make an appearance is in the report. So I can generate this report at any time, right? We can generate this at the beginning of the incident, in the middle of the incident, at the end of the incident, on demand, and get different summaries of what the incident was, how it came into existence, what work has been done so far, or once we get to resolution, how was resolution achieved? I start very high level. Here's the executive summary. Hey, currently remains open. There's no confirmed closure date. We still need to actually analyze it and confirm it. The likely cause of the incident is yet to be determined. 4 devices involved. There's a whole bunch of user accounts. Here's all the different tactics and techniques that were used. Very high level summary. But we get significantly, as you scroll down, you're going to get more data. You're going to get more granular summaries. Incident summary, I now get a bit more data, right? A bit more expanded out from that executive summary. Event summary, I'm now down to each event one by one. What time did it happen? What endpoints were involved? What processes or executions were involved? All the way down to the actual timeline table view, kind of similar to what we see in this incident report page, where here's the asset, here's the action, here's the timestamp. Here's how this progressed. We have not resolved this incident, right? We still leave this one up and open as we add new data to it. But as I take those containment actions, as I add my notes, as I change the status from open to containment achieved to closed out, I can just regenerate this report and say, cool, here's the finished report. It's closed up. We're done. Go ahead and send that up the chain to whoever needs a report on the incident. Cool. That's all our tabs. I always glance over this part. I don't know why. We talked about containment, right? I looked at all these awesome workflows that I can run with, let's count it, 1, 2, 3 mouse clicks, and I'm now isolating endpoints. That's all I need to do. This is still the manual way to do it, right? I've opened the incident. I've gone through that detection table. I've looked through the graph. I've started to glean out what exactly happened and who was involved. And I chose my version of containment. We can automate any of the workflows that are available in here, right? These ones that show available as part of this default playbook is 5% maybe of all the workflows that actually exist in the library in here. I can automate any of those workflows to run at any point in time based on any of the data in the incident. What time did it come in? What assets were involved? What was the source? What were the tactics and techniques used? What was the score of it? What was the asset value? Anything, any of the data points inside of an incident, I can use to build a trigger that says, hey, if an incident comes in and XYZ criteria are met, let's immediately go block the public domains that were part of the incident. Right? I'm fairly safe I can do that without causing too much pain and suffering. Let's go block those immediately. Or certain devices are involved. The priority is a certain number or higher. I don't care. Immediately isolate the endpoints. Right? I'll deal with the fallout. I'll deal with the backlash that I'm sure to get from locking out a bunch of folks. But again, up to you on what you choose to automate, when exactly that automation runs, and which workflows you're going to use to do that automation. There's a full workflow library that we make available in here. Right? This is just a component of the ones that come out of the box. We maintain what we call the exchange. This is where we use Cisco, and now we have a like a crowdsourced version of this as well. We just write new workflows that we think are cool, and we publish them to the exchange. There's no cost to that. There's no fee to get access to the change. There's no limit to the number of workflows that you can pull down. If you scroll through these and say, hey, that sounds interesting, I'd like to do that, I just pull it down from the exchange.
You have any favorite workflows?
Any of the WebEx ones I like, just because I hate watching emails or looking at this one. The umbrella ones are really good. The orbital ones are awesome, right? These forensic snapshot ones, really good. I don't need to go manually do that snapshot. I can just say the moment an incident comes in, boom, I know I have a forensic snapshot from that point in time.
Very cool. Andres, I didn't mean to cut you off. Go ahead.
No, it's all good. I was just remembering what Brianna mentioned yesterday about the automate exchange, and I think this is related to that as well.
This is it. Yeah.
It up.
Yep, this is the exchange, and now recently we have community source exchanges, right? We tag them as community. We still review these. Our engineering still looks at them, make sure they do what they say they're doing, and they're not going to cause problems. Once they've been validated, we now upload these and say, hey, Cisco didn't write these, but another customer did, and they've been useful. We think it could be useful for y'all. Here's all now the community source ones that we have available up here.
That's awesome.
That wraps it up. Very high level. Again, we went through dashboards, we went through incidents. We looked at that correlation. We took our version of response. We saw how we could automate response. Whole ton of stuff in here, right? Whole ton of different places we can dig in deeper. But thank you guys for the time. Thank you.
That's been great. Thank you, Jake. I did have, do you have time to take 2 questions that were sent to me?
Yeah.
Okay. One was asked, and this sounds like a yes, but can we pull from logs from Azure, AWS cloud logs?
Yes. Yeah.
Okay.
So we didn't get into this, but we have had a product called Secure Cloud Analytics that used to be StealthWatch Cloud. That is now one of the foundational components of XDR. Secure Cloud Analytics is targeted specifically on that, consuming cloud events, consuming cloud logs, consuming cloud data. Yes, so that is now just one of the native telemetry sources or the native capabilities of XDR. Yep.
Excellent. And then the only other one that came in was, in terms of deployment, is it safe to deploy this live? Like, can it be in a kind of an audit mode, like in a detect only mode?
Yeah. Yep. Because I mean, the only thing it's going to do, the only action it's going to take is if I run one of those workflows or if I run one of those responses. There are no automation triggers there out of the box, so you're not going to turn it up and there's already one in there for 1,000 or higher, blocks everything. No, it's up to you to build the automation triggers. That's a slippery slope. So no, out of the box, it's just going to listen. It's going to correlate. It's going to give you that data. You could then manually choose to actually intervene and take action or start to experiment with the triggers.
That's excellent. Excellent. Well, Jake, thank you so much for taking the time to show us Cisco XDR today. Andres and I have been really looking forward to this. Anybody in the audience who wants to try this out, feel free to reach out to your Cisco account team. If you have further questions, you can contact the show here. Andres and I will be happy to get you set up. Jake, thank you so much. And Andres, good to see you as always. Stay safe, and we will see everybody on the next show.
Awesome.
Good to see you. Thank you.
See you all.